chosen one. Have you noticed how your life always seems harder than others? While some walk without major obstacles, you face pains, losses, and pressures that seem endless. But the answer lies precisely in this. It's not by chance. If the weight is greater, if the road is narrower, and if the tears are more constant, it's because you carry a spiritual mark. God's chosen ones do not have ordinary lives. From an early age, their path is shaped by intense experiences that test faith, but also build character. With each battle, they discover something new about themselves and about the Lord. These tests do not appear to destroy, but to reveal. The hotter the fire, the purer the gold. So it is with the journey of the chosen. The great truth is that no one chooses to be chosen. God determines it. And when He separates someone, He also allows trials that shape this person for their destiny. Many times you ask yourself, why is it always harder for me? But the answer is simple, because your calling is greater. The higher the mission, the more intense the preparation process. Being chosen means being called to impact. Your life is not just about you, but about all those who will be reached through your story. That's why the trials are inevitable. But at the same time, each one of them is a confirmation that you are not lost, but on the right path. Suffering becomes the greatest evidence that a grand purpose is waiting for you. Let's go through 7 trials that every chosen one faces. They are experiences that may seem harsh, but are repeated in the lives of those who carry the divine seal. If, throughout this reading, you identify with these situations, know this. It's not a coincidence. It's confirmation. It's proof that you were set apart for something greater, and that God has already written the destiny of your life. Before we begin, follow the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. The test of rejection. Those who carry a greater purpose in God often realize early on that rejection is part of the journey. People close to them begin to distance themselves. Emotional bonds are broken without explanation, and even within their own family, the chosen one may be seen as an outsider. This is not a coincidence, but a process allowed by God to adjust identity and forge the heart. Rejection hurts because it hits one of the most basic human needs: the need to belong. To be understood, embraced, and accepted is part of the longing of the heart. But those who have been set apart by God need to learn, sometimes through tears, that the affirmation that sustains the spirit does not come from people, but from the Lord. This test aims to remove fragile supports and lead the chosen one into a more intimate and mature relationship with the Creator. The scriptures clearly show this pattern. Joseph, still young, was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, and sold as a slave. For anyone, this could have represented the end. But for God, it was just the beginning of a process that would lead him to the governance of Egypt. Joseph's rejection was the path to the fulfillment of a promise. What seemed like injustice was, in fact, part of divine guidance. Rejection also has the effect of revealing where our true source of identity lies. When the voice of the world quiets, the voice of God becomes clearer. It is in this place of solitude and silence that the chosen one learns that being approved in heaven is more important than being accepted on earth. The absence of human applause gives space for the strengthening of inner conviction. This test also teaches about freedom. When the heart stops depending on the approval of others to move forward, it becomes light and firm. The fear of being misunderstood, the constant need to please, and the insecurity before others gaze lose their power. Rejection becomes an instrument of liberation when it leads us to the certainty that the only validation that matters comes from God. If today you feel that you don't belong anywhere, that you don't fit into any environment, perhaps this is the answer your heart needs. You were not set apart to be like everyone else. God did not call you to follow common patterns. The path of the chosen is different because the destiny is too. Rejection is not the end. It is the door through which many enter at the beginning of the true journey. Remember, even Christ was rejected, and it was precisely this rejection that made way for the redemption of many. What today seems like rejection will tomorrow be proof that you were set apart for something that cannot be understood by all. The pain of exclusion may be great, but it will never be greater than the honor that God reserves for those who do not give up. The test of the desert. Every chosen one, sooner or later, crosses the desert. This is not just a geographical or symbolic place, but a real phase of the spiritual life where everything seems stagnant. The desert is marked by silence, scarcity, and loneliness. The answers do not come easily. Prayers seem to hit the ceiling, and the soul begins to wonder if it is still being heard by God. But it is in this setting that the pillars of genuine faith are built. The desert is necessary because it is there that the heart learns to depend completely on heaven. Outside of it, there are distractions that can mask spiritual weakness. In the desert, there are no distractions possible. It is you, God, and the silence. It is in this silence that God speaks louder, not with noise, but with depth. He is not distant. He is shaping. Biblical stories show that all the great men and women of God went through this stage. Moses spent 40 years away from Egypt before returning as a deliverer. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert before beginning his ministry. David spent years fleeing before taking the throne that was promised to him. The pattern is repeated deliberately. God prepares his chosen ones with processes, not with haste. This test has the power to reveal motivations. When everything seems to be against you, it is there that you see if faith remains. The desert takes away the crutches. Without open doors, without prophetic words, without visible signs, what sustains you is the conviction that God continues to be God even in silence. It is in the emptiness of the answers that the heart learns to trust, not in the circumstances, but in the character of the one who promised. Many give up in the desert because they believe they have been abandoned. But the desert is not abandonment. It is refinement. Gold is only purified by fire, and faith is only strengthened through trials. The apparent delay of God is, in fact, care. He is forging structure to sustain the weight of destiny. The desert is a school, and every school has an end, but it also has a purpose. If you are in this place today, remember that the desert is just a crossing. It does not define your destiny. It only prepares you to reach it. Every dry morning you face is forming resistance, faith, and maturity. God is in full control, even when everything seems still. No season lasts forever. The desert will also pass. When this time ends, you will come out different, firmer, more mature, and more ready. The promised land is not given to just anyone, but to those who have been prepared to inhabit it. And the preparation happens in the desert. So keep walking, even if you don't understand. Today's silence is the prelude to a future manifestation. Trust, today's desert will be tomorrow's testimony of God's faithfulness. The test of pain. Pain, in its various forms, is one of the most striking tests in the life of those chosen by God. It appears unexpectedly without asking for permission, and settles in like a fire that seems to consume everything around it. Sometimes it is physical, other times emotional. In many cases it is spiritual or familial, and when it reaches these deeper layers of the soul, it becomes even harder to bear. However, the pain of the chosen is not a punishment. It is not divine punishment or rejection. On the contrary, it is a process carefully allowed by God with the purpose of shaping, refining, and preparing. The Lord knows the human heart and understands that certain lessons can only be learned through tears. He sees the potential hidden within the vessel and, like a watchful potter, knows that the heat of the furnace is necessary for the structure to support the purpose. Biblical examples illustrate this reality clearly. Job is perhaps the most emblematic, a man of integrity, faithful, and God-fearing, who lost everything brutally: family, wealth, health, honor. His suffering was so intense that even his friends doubted his integrity. But it was precisely in that scene of pain that God revealed his faithfulness in a profound way. In the end, Job was not only restored, but also came to know God more intimately. "I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you." This experience shows that pain, when placed in God's hands, does not destroy. It transforms. Those who go through this kind of trial become more sensitive to the pain of others, more compassionate, more prepared to care for others. It is in the field of pain that ministers full of compassion, leaders with authority, and living testimonies of divine faithfulness are born. However, this trial is also marked by the feeling of injustice. It is not uncommon to look around and see people who show no interest in the things of God living in tranquility, while you, who seek to please Him, walk through such dark valleys. This feeling can generate outrage, but it is important to remember that God does not measure purpose by the ease of the path. He measures it by the depth of the impact. The pain in the chosen one is like a chisel in the hand of the sculptor. Every loss, every disappointment, every night without answers is shaping something eternal inside you. Pain bids farewell to vanity, draws you closer to the cross, and teaches you to trust, even when everything says otherwise. It makes you deeper, stronger, and more dependent on heaven. If you are living a season of pain, do not think that all is lost. A process is taking place behind the scenes. Every tear of yours is being collected. Every prayer, even amidst groans, is being heard. And every step you take, even with a wounded heart, is bringing you closer to your purpose. The chosen one is not spared from pain, but is sustained by God within it. And when the time of healing comes, because it always comes, you will not only rise, but you will become a living testimony. Your wounds, once open, will now be marks of overcoming. Your scars will tell stories of deliverance, and your life will become proof that pain may visit, but it will never have the final word over those who have been set apart by God. The test of God's silence. One of the most unsettling tests a chosen one faces is the silence of God. It is that moment when, even after seeking intensely, everything seems unanswered. You pray, fast, cry out, and still hear nothing. No sign, no clear direction. It feels as though heaven is in complete silence. And it is precisely here that the heart begins to be tested more deeply. The silence of God is not a sign of absence. It does not mean that God has turned His face or given up on you. On the contrary, this silence is often one of the most intense forms of spiritual preparation. It forces you to move beyond emotional faith into firm, convicted faith. The kind that walks without feeling, that continues even without seeing. The faith that matures. Habakkuk is a good example of this. He cried out for justice while the people lived in corruption. He asked why God was not acting, why evil seemed to prosper. And amid this anguish, God's silence was deafening. But in the right time, the answer came. And not just an answer. A revelation came. The just would live by faith, even without seeing, even without understanding. The silence of God is like secret training. It teaches the heart to stop depending on external evidence and to begin trusting in the eternal truth. God is not closer when He speaks, nor farther when He is silent. His presence is constant, but silence teaches us to hear Him beyond words, to discern Him in everyday life, to perceive His steps even when there is no sound. This test is challenging because it stirs up human anxiety. We expect immediate answers, clear directions, visible confirmations. But God works differently. He shapes with time, builds with patience, and reveals with purpose. And in this process, silence is a powerful tool to make us mature, stable, and convicted. During the silence, it is common for the enemy to try to throw lies. God has forgotten you. You are alone. Your prayer hasn't reached heaven. But none of these statements are true. Silence is not proof of abandonment, but of trust. When God is silent, it is because He trusts that you will remain, even without understanding. Many give up in this place. They freeze their spiritual journey because they don't see signs. But the true chosen one learns to remain. They learn that the absence of voice is not the absence of love. And they understand that behind the silence, an invisible work is being carried out. If you are living this moment now, do not lose faith. Keep seeking. Keep praying. Keep trusting. The silence will not be eternal. And when God's voice returns to sound, you will realize that it was working all along, even when silent. What seems like emptiness today will be tomorrow's testimony of a faith that resisted time and came out approved. The test of injustice. Injustice is one of the most painful tests that the chosen one can face on their journey. Being wrongly judged, misinterpreted by those you trusted, accused without guilt, or betrayed by those who should protect you. These are deep wounds that mark the soul. However, these situations are not coincidences. For those who have been set apart by God, even injustices have a purpose within the greater plan. God allows the chosen to go through these experiences to teach an essential lesson. True justice is not in human hands, but in His hands. When someone is wronged, everything within them cries for explanation, for reparation, for recognition. But the Lord, as the just judge, works beyond time, observing the heart and preparing a scenario where the truth will be revealed at the right moment. The Bible shows us several examples of the chosen ones who were targets of injustice. Joseph, even though he was faithful and upright, was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and thrown into prison. David, still young, was relentlessly pursued by Saul, even though he was loyal. Jesus, the Son of God, was unjustly condemned by a corrupt court, even though he had committed no sin. In all these cases, injustice preceded exaltation. The path of humiliation was, in fact, the soil where God built honor and purpose. It is natural for this test to shake the inner sense of justice. It hurts to know that you are right and yet are suffering. It hurts to see people being deceived by lies about you. But the pain of the chosen is not wasted. When you hand that pain to God, He transforms injustice into testimony. What seemed like defeat, shame, or humiliation becomes a stage where divine justice shines clearly. It is in this place of pain that the heart is tested. Will you continue to trust, even when you are not understood? Will you continue to serve, even when you are misinterpreted? The chosen one matures when they learn to wait for heaven's verdict, not for the applause of men, because the human court is limited and deceptive. But God's judgment is perfect and eternal. If today you are facing a situation where you have been treated unjustly, do not despair. This is yet another evidence that you carry a special calling. God never closes His eyes to the pain of the innocent. He sees everything. And at the right time, He will bring honor where there was shame, justice where there was accusation, and peace where there was once anguish. The injustice that surrounds you today will be the reason for your exaltation tomorrow. God will use every tear, every silence, every hurt, suffered in secret, to build something that no one can erase. In the end, it will not be the slander that will prevail, but the faithfulness of the one who chose you. The test of injustice is not the end of the story. It is the exact point where God begins to write the turnaround. The test of inner confrontation. The chosen one also faces the hardest battle, the confrontation with oneself. It is that internal war between faith and fear, between trusting and doubting, between obeying and resisting. This battle is not visible, but it is real. The enemy tries to use thoughts, memories, and weaknesses to paralyze you. But it is in this confrontation that the character of the chosen is shaped. Paul described this well when he said, "For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do." This struggle is part of the Christian life. The chosen one needs to learn to conquer first within themselves, and only then will they conquer in the external world. The greatest battle is not against the devil, but against the flesh and the mind. This test is intense because there is no way to escape from yourself. You can avoid people and places, but you cannot avoid your own thoughts. God allows this confrontation to show that victory begins within. The Holy Spirit is the one who enables you to master yourself, to bring the flesh under submission, and to align your mind with the Word. If you feel this battle within yourself, know that you are not alone. Every chosen one goes through this. The difference is that, by overcoming within yourself, you become unshakable on the outside. The inner war is the furnace where true faith is forged. When you surrender to God, even your thoughts become a field of victory. The test of waiting. Among all the tests that a chosen one of God faces, perhaps none is as silent, long, and challenging as waiting. There is no noise, no visible conflict, no external struggles. But within the soul, time becomes a battlefield between faith and anxiety, between hope and frustration. Waiting tests the essence of trust. God makes the promise, but the fulfillment does not come immediately. And it is in this gap that true maturity is forged. Waiting is the process where faith stops being theory and becomes practice. As time passes, the heart cries for answers. The mind tries to understand the reasons. And the enemy whispers lies such as, "You have been forgotten. The promise wasn't real. Nothing is going to happen." But it is precisely in this space between the promise and the fulfillment that character is dealt with, where the soul learns to depend solely on God. Biblical examples reveal to us how this waiting is part of the divine plan. Abraham received the promise of a son, but he had to wait decades to see Isaac born. Joseph dreamed of his exaltation, but went through rejection, slavery, and imprisonment before seeing the fulfillment. David was anointed king while still young, but only ascended to the throne after years of persecution, fleeing, and trials. In all these cases, the time of waiting was not wasted, but preparation. This preparation does not only happen in the heart of the chosen one, but also in the environment around them. God aligns people, situations, and resources so that when the promise is fulfilled, everything is in the right place. Sometimes, it is not only you who need to mature, but also those who will be part of the plan. The Father works in a complete way, and for this reason, His timing is different from ours. He is never late. He only acts at the exact moment. Waiting teaches virtues that cannot be developed in any other way. Patience teaches us to endure without complaining. Perseverance enables us to stay firm, even without visible signs. And faith keeps us connected to the promise, even when time tries to convince us otherwise. Waiting is more than just a waiting. It is actively trusting, even when nothing seems to be moving. Many give up at this point. They think that God has forgotten them, or that the promise has been canceled. But the truth is that waiting is an indispensable stage. No solid construction rises overnight. Just as a tree needs time to send deep roots before it grows, The chosen one's purpose also requires a hidden process before it is publicly manifested. The test of waiting is often the last one before fulfillment. When everything seems still, when there is no more strength to fight, it is a sign that the dawn is about to break. Heaven acts in silence, but with precision. And when the promise arrives, you will understand that every second of waiting was essential. Nothing will be wasted. Everything will cooperate to ensure that the fulfillment glorifies God's name. Chosen one. All these tests, rejection, desert, pain, silence, injustice, inner confrontation, and waiting, are marks that confirm your identity. None of them are by chance. Each one exists to shape you and prepare you for the destiny that has already been written in heaven. The greater the weight of the tests, the greater the certainty that there is an extraordinary mission reserved for your life. Do not compare yourself to those who have an easier journey. You were not called to live like everyone else. You were set apart to live like few others. Your path is narrow because your mission is vast. Your tears are many because your harvest will be abundant. The test is not a sign of rejection, but the greatest evidence that God has entrusted something great to you. So when you look at your story and realize how many times you have been broken, remember, common vessels don't go through so much. But chosen vessels are shaped by the potter himself, and when he finishes the work, the world will recognize that it could only be the result of God's hand. Your scars are marks of victory, not defeat. Receive this word as confirmation. You are not just anyone, you are chosen. And if today you are going through tests, rejoice. This is just the preparation. The destiny is already written, and the victory is already decreed. In the right time, heaven will manifest, and all will see that you did not endure in vain. You are a living proof that every chosen one has a destiny.